starting in 1999, I got involved in personal development, somewhat by fluke, and ended up spending a lot of money on a credit card to do a bunch of courses over a couple of years. And then that led to more, and that led to more, and real estate investment events, and so on. And before I knew it, 10 years later had gone by, and I'd spent $50,000 on my personal financial education, and I'd gone to all these events. But through the process of that was a lot of network building and creating contacts. And that was the circle of people that I wanted to spend time with. So I 100% resonate where you're coming from. What's interesting about that, I think there's an important lesson for our listeners to be able to take away is that you can always be building your network. Everything that you're doing is an opportunity to build up. We are back with Brian, hearing about his incredible stage experience, now professional speaking, something that was a vision, something you wanted to do. You always knew that you wanted to do it at some point, and now having this opportunity and getting very focused on making it a reality. What comes up for me, Brian, is what was that drive? Where did that come from? What was the thing that made you say, you know what, I want to go be that guy up on stage? Where did that come from?
It came from a kind of a teacher's heart, and that is I'm a total nerd. If you could see, I've got one bookshelf over here, I've got another bookshelf over here. Um, I was really lucky that I didn't like reading in school, but when I got out of school, I got introduced to like that Get Motivated and these other things, and I loved going and learning. And what I found is a lot of people wanted to go, but they didn't want to invest in themselves, so they'd pick my brain. Well, like, what'd you learn at this one? Like, oh, well, there you go. And I started trading books with people and things like that. And as all that was going on, I was started on the help desk in corporate America, and then I got moved to be the manufacturing floor because I hated sitting at a desk, but I loved the people had to reach out to me because that's the introvert side of me. But then I learned how to build the machines, and then they needed an installer to go and install this. Well, I'm like, okay, well, I want to travel anyway. So I became an installer. Well, they're like, oh, well, if you're the installer, you also have to be the trainer. And so I became the corporate trainer as well when you're on site. And I loved teaching things to people. And that just was a consistent theme. As a matter of fact, one of my first dates in 2012 with my ex, she said, what do you want to do for a living? I said, I want to get paid to travel the world and teach people something. But what happened is every time I started to lean away from corporate America, I got a promotion.
Hmm.
So over that 22 years or 21 and a half years, I got 10 different promotions. So here I started on the help desk, second shift, and then by the time I worked my way up, I was regional vice president of sales with a $40 million book of business. But what helped me in all those are all these skills that I was learning by attending events. So being an introvert, I started with body language books because why? You can observe people and learn that.
Hmm.
Then, I read Never Split the Difference, other books like that. So how to have negotiation skills, how to understand people, active listening, statement analysis books, like when somebody says it, what's the intention? I kept picking up all these skills because being an introvert, it didn't come naturally to interact with people. Now I'm good at asking questions, but conversing and things was kind of a challenge.
Hmm.
And what I realized is this one skill of learning to decode faces really, truly changed my life to the nth degree. And I wanted to share that with other people. So I mentioned before in 2019, I reached out to the guy who taught to me, and I'd been teaching it to my friends. And I said, I would just really love to do this full time, and do this. And he said, do it. And I said, can I trade under a different name? I don't want to take anything away from you and what you've built. Can I create my own company name? He said, absolutely. And the very first time I got on stage and taught it, and somebody came up and they're like, holy crap, you helped me. That's when I was hooked.
Hmm.
And like I said, I spoke for free for a very long time to get exposure, but I loved doing it. Every time I came back, I had a post-speaking hangover because I was so excited to be out there and meet all the people and everything. And I just come home to a quiet house and it wasn't fun for me. I just love being around people. When you go to seminars, you're around people who want to be there, who want to improve their life. And some of them are below you and some of them are above you. And you can learn from everybody in that room.
Fascinating. Well, it's interesting. You talked about being an introvert, and yet the methodology by which you've gone to develop all these skills, constantly going to events, surrounding yourself with people, getting into conversations with people repeatedly. An outside observer would think, well, Brian's not much of an introvert.
Right. I have to fight my norm. Normally, when I go to an event, when I was an attendee, I was in the back of the room in the far back side. And there's a reason why I sit in the back, and that is because if I sit up front, and I know you're supposed to sit close to the speaker, I hear everything that's going on behind me. But if I'm sitting in the back, I don't get distracted by what's going on because then I can focus. And I know that sounds weird, but that's the way my brain works. But I had to fight it. And when I became a speaker, what I would do is I would go and look up people on LinkedIn ahead of time. And when I was decoding their face, I felt like I was meeting up with a long lost friend versus
Mm.
walking into something cold. That's a way that it really helped me on this. And same thing when I used to do presentations, a lot of times we knew some of the people who were going to be in the room. So I'd go look them up on LinkedIn or find a picture of them on social media and figure out, how do they think? How do they take in information? And when I was making the presentation about the person and not me and my product, it changed things.
That's fascinating. And so a lot of the work that you would do is almost like the preemptive strike, we'll call it, where
Yes.
you're going in and doing some of that advanced research, specifically on photo images to be able to understand using the training that you have. So I'm curious about that. For our viewers, walk us through a little bit of that. Someone wants to learn these skills. Obviously, we can't train them how to do all that here on this show, but
Right.
what would be some of the initial things that you're looking at when you would do some of this research on someone that you might meet coming up at an event?
Sure. I would go and find them on LinkedIn. I'd start on LinkedIn. Why on LinkedIn? Because you're going to get a straight on, well lit shot a majority of the time. The reason I move off of LinkedIn is we don't know how long ago that headshot was.
Mm.
So I would use it to find the person. And then I would see, do they have a social media? Or I go Google their name. And when things show up, I could break down a face. Like, do you want to see an example of one?
Sure.
Okay, let me see if I can pull one up real fast. Okay, so you can see the picture here. So what
Yep.
I do is I'd first go look up somebody on LinkedIn. And then what I'd do is I'd find all these different features that stuck out on their face. And every single one of these features teaches me something about the person. So this person, Sam Taggart, he has the largest door-to-door selling event every January called Door to Door Con. And before I went to meet him, I went and looked up his face, and every single one of these things tells me something about him.
Mm.
So you ask the question, what's my favorite thing or the first thing I look for? And it's eyebrows, because you can see eyebrows from across the room. So if I don't know who I'm going to meet with, but I'm walking into a networking event, I go and look at how high or low are their eyebrows, and then I look at what shape their eyebrows.
Okay.
And that's enough information to tell me high eyebrows people need more time to make a decision. Lower eyebrow people make decisions very fast.
Mm.
So if I'm going to go meet with someone, I look and I go, are their eyebrows high or low? If they're higher, they need more time to make a decision. If they're low, get to the point as soon as possible. Now, people go, oh, you're saying somebody's smarter or dumber. No, sometimes waiting is the smarter move. Sometimes if you wait too long, you lose out.
Uh,
So there is
a lot
no
of people
right or
who make
wrong.
fast decisions make a lot of they make a lot of decisions real fast, but a lot of them aren't correct.
Exactly. So when you start, what's funny is we talk about faces all the time. I'm going to show you one or two. We'll just, since we're looking at, like if you go and Google people without eyebrows, you take away one feature and it's like we don't know how to talk to those same people.
Mm.
Now you can go the opposite direction of that, and that is you can draw eyebrows on and it changes how we see people as well. Or if you take away one feature, we feel like we don't even know who we're talking to.
Mm.
So it's funny, and we talk about eyebrows when we talk about highbrow humor and lowbrow humor in comedies. So highbrow humor is when somebody tells you a joke and you have to think about it and then you laugh. Lowbrow humor is Jackass and Three Stooges, instant physical comedy. So when you see people with higher eyebrows, think of it like a speed bump in the middle of the road. So if you imagine the forehead and Data's trying to get down to get into your eye, the higher the eyebrow, I can only go so fast, go over the speed bump and try and speed up again.
Mm.
But if the speed bump is like putting a speed bump by the stop sign, then Data can race down and they'll make decisions fast. So when you see somebody with higher eyebrows, give them more time. If you see low eyebrows, then get to the point as soon as possible.
Hmm.
So when I started doing this, what I realized is we're taught the golden rule. You want to be treated the way I want to be treated, but that's not always the case. So instead, I just look and go, okay, do they need more time? Should I add in more slides, or should the presentation go longer, or should it go shorter? And then the next thing I look for is there's three basic shapes of eyebrows. So there is straight, angled, and rounded. So straight eyebrows are get straight to the point, facts, figures, data. And we're taught by television and movies. So what is Spock known for? Logic.
Mhm.
What eyebrows do they give him? Straight eyebrows. Even the old Leonard Nimoy, people thought they were angled, but no, they just did straight, but they did up like this.
Mhm.
Warren Buffett's a good example. He looks at the numbers behind things. So facts, figures, and data. If they have angled eyebrows like I do, what's my angle? Help me understand it so then I can help other people.
Mm.
If I show you a picture of me at 18 versus 38, I used to have straight eyebrows. But remember, I said I became a corporate trainer. Well, help desk, you have to learn it so you can help. Corporate trainer, I had to learn all the material so I could regurgitate it. So when you see somebody with angled eyebrows, they're considered authoritarian
Hmm.
but it's because the person needs to understand and then they can bestow knowledge. And then the last one you'll see is rounded eyebrows. Rounded eyebrow people think about the people around them, and people go, oh, well, Elon's all about Elon. Where did he invest his money? Into Tesla, right? So he made a bunch of money off PayPal and he invested in Tesla. Well, that's not about him. It was about creating things that people can use. And then there's SpaceX and other things. So it's not just about him. He's actually, if you look at where people put money and time, that tells you where their passion is.
Hmm.
And what does he do with all of his, right? He puts in the things that help humanity to a degree. So it's kind of funny. I'll just show you one last one. We'll go back to just kind of talking. Nobody ever wants to look at me again once they realize what I do for a living. So I show my own face. And this is how much my face has changed over time. So when I was younger, my ears used to stick out more. Over time, they became closer to my head.
Interesting.
My eyebrows used to be straight. Now they're angled. And then my eyes used to angle down quite a bit. And that's another facial feature that tells you something about someone.
Hmm.
So what's funny is this was actually all part of the academic system until Henry VIII had it yanked out. So he said, I don't like the idea that beggars and vagabonds can use this against their fellow man, and he had it pulled out of the English universities.
That's incredible. Brian, this is fascinating. I can't wait to explore more of this. We're going to dive right back in after this quick break.
My favorite to begin with, like I mentioned earlier, is eyebrows. And the reason more and more is because eyebrows lead to eye contact, which is a lost art. But eyebrows tell us so much. So the high and low and the three shapes we covered tells you how do people take in information and how do they want it presented to them. So that's enough to be dangerous. And then I go to eye angle because I know, do they want to hear about the upside of things? Are they in the middle or do they angle down? And that tells you how to present the information. So if their eyes angle up, then I know they want to hear about the upside of things. Talk about your features, talk about your benefits. If they're even,